Game on.
Game on. Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening. This is episode, I think, 12.
Yeah.
Send better emails.
That's mad, isn't it? 12% through to finally producing a good podcast.
Well, I hope producing good emails.
That was a Freudian slip right off the bat.
Yeah, what is it, 100 emails? No, I did it as well. 100 podcast episodes before you get any good at it, apparently. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what
it's probably the same rule applies to emails as well. In which case, we should be pretty good because we send about 100 emails a week.
Yeah, okay, good.
But 100 podcast episodes, so 12%. That loading bar's slowly getting there.
Yeah, we're probably... my maths isn't that good. We're not 11% better than we were in the first episode.
No, I don't think so.
How much percent are we better than we were?
I think I was getting worse. So your wife is a devout listener to this podcast, apparently, because she said that I always say this one particular word. And I'm really, when someone points that out, you become really in your own head.
Is that why you've not said it once in this recording session?
Well, I didn't realise that I'd said it at all. But apparently I can't even remember what the word is, but...
Oh, I know what it is. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go on.
Well, the word's denigrate.
Denigrate?
Yeah.
I don't mean to denigrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good phrase of yours. I think maybe you had a phrase phase.
Yeah.
You do always.
It is a bit like word of the day, isn't it? If there's a word that you really like using,
There is that, that, is it recency bias where you buy a new car and then all of a sudden you see it everywhere?
Yes.
It's the same for learning new words as well, I think.
I agree. I
remember I was on holiday with my wife and my in-laws, and my mother-in-law at the breakfast table came up with the word lugubrious.
Oh. Nice.
I was like, I've never heard that word before. What does it mean? So we had this big talk about what does lugubrious mean. And then after breakfast, I go and read my book that I'm halfway through, and lugubrious pops up.
Oh,
so I don't know. Like, is that just been in every single book that I've read, and I've not noticed it until now? Is it because she said it at the breakfast table?
That's actually the name of this podcast.
Lugubrious emails or something.
One, I want to know what that word means. Two, I think the best way to learn a word is for that to happen, where it pops up in the wild shortly after you've learnt it.
Yeah.
What does lugubrious mean?
Well, it was a long time ago and I've forgotten. Let me have a look at what lugubrious means.
It's a nice sounding word.
Yeah. Okay, you just said that our email is our podcast is lugubrious. Looking or sounding sad and dismal. So
that works.
Yeah, it does.
Well, welcome to this lugubrious episode.
Yeah.
Where we're going to talk about accessibility, which hopefully won't be a sad or dismal topic.
No. You said you had a funny anecdote to start this episode off, and we just then...
No, that was it.
What was?
Talking about denigrate, the word I always say.
Oh, okay, right, fine. Sorry.
That was it. Do you feel like you've improved as a podcaster, Jamie? I didn't ask that question back.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone can say if they've improved. I think that's up to the listeners, right?
I mean, I'm a listener, and I don't think you have.
You don't think I've improved?
No.
I think I need more energy in my podcasting. I think when we're talking, I just talk like we're talking normally, like having a conversation.
I think it would be a bit cringe though if you're suddenly like, "Hey guys."
Yeah. Well, I just had an American accent all of a sudden.
It just would. Yeah. It wouldn't be you. You've got to be yourself.
Yeah, and maybe myself is just too lugubrious for podcasting.
Yeah, I was going to say, just your lugubrious self.
Yeah. Just like Eeyore.
All right, so Eeyore Woodbridge. We're talking accessibility today, and I want to be upfront with the listeners and say that this is a topic that we are relatively new to. We are investing more time in learning about it, in part because there is a significant law change in Europe which comes into effect in the summer of 2025, called the European Accessibility Act. So that kind of came onto our radar at the beginning of this year. And as part of that act, there are various criteria that needs to be met for any businesses sending out email comms, certain accessibility criteria. So that sort of piqued our interest and obviously got us reading about it. And it sort of unearthed a whole load of fascinating information about this topic that I think the two of us had been anecdotally aware of, but had never really spent huge amounts of time researching, which that's definitely to the detriment of us.
Yeah. Did you say piqued our interest?
Oh, I did, but I did, but you know what? That's one of those words where I've said to people before, it's so embarrassing because I used to say piqued rather than peaked. I always thought it was piqued, like Gerard Piqué, the
it's like the footballer.
defender.
You've just been piqued.
Yeah. But I still do it, even having realised that it's wrong. I still can't help myself. Yeah, that's embarrassing.
I like it. It's like
That's happened.
sometimes posh people pronounce things in a slightly different way, don't they?
Yeah,
to everyone else.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. I debate whether to let you get away with that one, but I thought I had to pay attention to it.
Thank you. It's good to point out. I'm sad that it's now like immortalised on this podcast, but definitely leave it in. I deserve it.
I mean, I hate to denigrate, but
so I suppose part of the reason why I give that explainer is that there's certainly sometimes you and I can be guilty of sort of guilting people into not doing something that they should be doing when it comes to their email marketing. And it would be easy to go down that route here and be like, of course you should be doing this. This is your moral imperative above anything else. But it's important to stress that a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing today are quite technical, quite difficult to measure, and by no means intuitive for someone who is lucky enough not to have any of the accessibility issues that we're going to be touching on. And so there is absolutely no blame here from us or any sense of this is something you ought to have been doing for years. As email marketers, we are relatively new to this world and the sort of the technical nuances of it. And so we're going to do our best to give you a sort of crash course over the next 20 minutes or so in the hopes that you come away from it understanding why it's important from a moral perspective, but also from a legal and indeed business standpoint, why accessibility in your email marketing matters so much.
Nice. Okay, cool. Also accessibility isn't it when we're talking about accessibility in email communications, it's not always the extremes that you think it is either, right? Because accessibility in emails could sometimes just mean people who prefer to read their emails in dark mode, for example. Yeah, I think making emails accessible isn't just about those extreme circumstances where where we're talking about a small minority of people who need a bit more help in that in this area, but making your emails accessible means making them accessible for everyone, and not in a accessible for everyone is probably one of the most cringe phrases we've ever said. But that everyone has levels of accessibility requirements that are worth thinking about here. And the biggest argument that we can make, besides the moral imperative, and you've just touched on the legal imperative there, is but on the business imperative, in that you are more likely that your emails are going to perform better if you make them more accessible. And not just notionally or anecdotally, that actually perform much better. And it will help you achieve your business objectives as well. So this is definitely an area where you're more versed in than I am, James. So I'm going to play the role of interviewer and you can be interviewee.
Sure.
So do we want to just talk about some of the top and obvious ways that you can make your emails more accessible?
Yeah, so I think the best place to start is to quickly talk about some of the reasons why someone might not be able to read or enjoy or engage with your email in the way that we would like them to when we're putting it together. Because as you say, Jamie, it's far more than just someone who is blind, for example. So vision impairments in general can be a big reason why someone might find it hard to engage with your email. So that could be anyone who wears glasses, for example, who struggles with reading text on a screen.
And you're going to teach us how to do an email in Braille, aren't you?
How to make your emails 3D.
Yeah.
At least 2.2 billion people globally have near or distance vision impairment. So, that's I don't know what the world's population is at the moment, but I reckon that's probably about a third.
Yeah,
significant.
I think we're at 8 billion now, aren't we? So
are we?
Yeah,
Blimey,
I think
it's really shooting up.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Colour blindness. Jamie, here's an interesting fact for you. 1 in 12 men are colourblind. 1 in 200 women are colourblind. That's intriguing, isn't it?
1 in 200?
1 in 200 women are colourblind. 1 in 12 men are colourblind.
I was going to say, it's a lovely green shirt you got on today.
Oh, good one.
I didn't know that key difference.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? 8% of men, 0.5% of women, if you want them in percentages. Dyslexia impacts 15% of people worldwide. 30 million people in the US alone. I'm afraid a lot of the statistics I'll be referring to are either going to be worldwide or applicable only to the US. But you can apply most of the statistics in the US when it comes to accessibility to Europe as well. They're more or less the same. Certainly the ones that I've seen anyway. Cognitive disabilities affect 14% of US adults. Aging population, Jamie. By 2030, 1.4 billion people will be over the age of 60. So there are vision and cognitive challenges associated with that. And situational disabilities, for example, if you've broken an arm or both your arms or whatever, it might be hard for you to access certain content online.
I can't wait for the point in this podcast where you tell us how to write an email that's more accessible for someone who's broken both of their arms.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will actually. So
yeah, just remember, you promised before this episode started that you treat this topic with deference and respect.
Yeah,
and laughing at someone who's broken both their arms isn't either of those things.
I'm laughing at you. Unless you've broken both of your arms, in which case I can only apologise.
Well, no, I haven't broken both my arms.
No, good.
I think I mentioned the dark mode thing. Maybe that's not as important here, but I think from my standpoint, I know the stats that around dark mode and how often businesses and brands don't make sure that they aren't making sure that their emails are optimal on dark mode. For me, I get a headache if I look at if my screen is too bright. So dark mode is like super important for me, but I'm not visually impaired or anything. So, I just again make that point that it's such a wide issue that's so commonplace here. We're not, and your stats kind of back that up.
Yeah.
I think it's sexy when you read out stats. Have you got any more?
There might be a couple more coming later on. God. Don't worry.
I'm on tenterhooks.
I want to outline 4 reasons, Jamie, why accessibility is important, and none of them have anything to do with the moral need for making your emails accessible. Because I think everyone who's listening to this will understand the moral imperative on an intuitive level, and it's not for us to preach about that sort of thing. We're certainly not the most righteous when it comes to email accessibility. There's still learning for us to do. So that's a one side for 1 second. 4 really compelling reasons. So firstly, there is a legal requirement. Like I said, the European Accessibility Act is coming in June 2025. That will compel us to adhere to certain rules when we're sending emails. There's the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990 for anyone who's marketing to a US audience. And there's the Equality Act in the UK, which came in 2010, which also includes various foundational accessibility requirements. So there is a good chance that people listening to this podcast are in contravention of some of those requirements already. And as I would imagine, as we progress and as marketing gets more sophisticated and our capabilities become more sophisticated, those rules are only going to get stricter as well. So nobody's going to get sent to prison for sending an email that doesn't tick the accessibility box by any means. And I don't want anyone to worry about serious reprimand. At the same time, if you can start doing some of the things that we're going to talk about in this email now, you are going to safeguard yourself for the future, and that can only be a good thing. So if you break
that law, me and James will come around and break both your arms. Then you can see how you like it, how difficult it is to read emails.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That'll show you.
Yeah.
There's also a business imperative.
So this is number 2.
This is number 2, yeah. There's a business imperative. So whenever we're sending an email that isn't accessible, we are ruling out a certain number of our recipients from taking action or engaging with the email in a way that we would like. So if we are trying to sell something to them, we are leaving money on the table if we're not making it easy for them to act on the CTA that we want them to act on. There is, in the US alone, $1 trillion a year of disposable income held by people with disabilities. So this isn't some sort of small rounding error. This could be the difference between success and failure for your email marketing. So I just want to stress that, there is, if for no other reason, there is a really compelling financial reason to make sure your emails are accessible. You're maximizing the number of people who are able to spend money with you or do whatever it is you want them to do.
Nice. You said $1 trillion like the guy from Austin Powers then.
Yeah, I should have done the finger, shouldn't I? The third reason is deliverability. So deliverability is a bit of a black box, as we've probably mentioned before. And just for clarity, if this is your first episode of Send Better Emails, deliverability is our likelihood of not being sent to the spam folder, of getting into primary inboxes, of our emails being sent successfully. One of the criteria used to determine how much an email deserves to be sent to primary inboxes is accessibility. And again, this is a factor that I think is only going to become more and more important when it comes to deliverability. So sending emails that tick the boxes when it comes to accessibility means your email is almost certainly more likely to reach the people you want it to reach. And the final thing I would say here, I guess a little bit linked to the morality argument, is the brand benefits that sending accessible emails gives you. If you are able to engage with a demographic that are used to being frustrated, that are used to not being able to engage in emails well, and you're the only clothing brand, the only agency, the only whatever it is that's actually respecting them enough to send emails that they can fully absorb and enjoy, that has huge implications on brand loyalty. We're not just talking about winning that one-time purchase. We're talking about turning prospective customers into lifelong customers purely because you're ticking these boxes.
Good little roundup there. I think we're going to talk about, are we going to talk about some specific things that people can do, just like giving a few out? I think,
yeah,
our goal for any episode that we record and put out there is for someone to have come away from an episode and thought that thing that Jamie said, or James, well, more likely Jamie said, but maybe James said it was interesting, and I might go away and action that or look at that in my own thing, this week. That that's the plan. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just trying to give something. If it's just one thing per episode, awesome. If it's one thing per 5 episodes, I don't know why you'd stick around for that one nugget in 5 episodes, but that's our plan here. And so, I think if we're able to give some examples of, okay, here are some things that you can do to make your emails more accessible, there's a really long and convoluted and quite complex list, right, that you want to point people towards. But some kind of headlines out of that would be great, So do you have those available?
Yes, yeah. There's loads actually, and if we can, yeah, we will link to an article published by Litmus, who actually have an accessibility tool on their website that means you can test your email for accessibility, and it will give you a score and tell you what to improve in order to make it more accessible. So that's an excellent resource, and they publish an article sort of adjacent to that tool, which gives you a whole range of criteria that you ought to be thinking about, and lots of detail about that. And we're not going to cover every single one in this podcast. I don't think the podcast is the most friendly way of absorbing that kind of information, but there are a couple. So I would say that the one that really sticks out to me, and perhaps that's because I think it's one of the most common mistakes that brands in particular make when it comes to their emails, is designing their emails as big image blocks rather than designing them natively in the email provider platform. So what do I mean by that? Well, brands that are particularly conscious of their aesthetic, so that can be any brand really, but you see it particularly in D2C emails. If you're a clothing brand or perhaps a beauty brand or something like that, you want your emails to also be beautiful. The temptation is to create an image of your email and build it in Canva or Photoshop or whatever you InDesign, whatever it might be, and effectively upload the image as an email. So just one image that you're sending out, and it will look beautiful because you're not beholden by the more strict, limited email builders that are usually native to these platforms. Instead, you can effectively include anything in there, any typeface, anything you want. And that is something that, Jamie, you and I see time and time again. It is incredibly harmful from an accessibility perspective. And the main reason for that is that when you have just one big image, it means that as far as the email is concerned, there's no text. So anyone who's using a text-to-speak piece of software, i.e. something that will read out the text for those that can't see the text very well, won't get anything at all. They literally, your email might as well be nothing. Some people will also have a plugin on their desktop browser, for example, or an app on their phone that will take the font and change it into a different font that's more friendly for certain visual impairments, or it might make the font bigger, for example. Again, those are things that if your email is just one big image, they can't work their magic. So I would say if you are guilty, or guilty is the wrong word, if you are currently building your emails just with images, big blocks of image, and not using the native facilities that these email providers offer, then you are hampering people's ability to engage with them. And you should do what you can to include as much text as possible native in the email builder. So have I explained that well? It's quite difficult without visuals. But...
Yeah, you have explained that well. I mean, I'm also an email marketer, so I get it. So we'll wait for feedback or the trolls.
Yeah,
tell us if it wasn't. So I think that there are ways in which we can design emails to still make them look beautiful, to still include some images, so we keep our brand fonts and where it's not defaulting to web safe fonts when we send the email. There is this hybrid kind of design that we can use that gives you the best of both worlds. And the other thing, I think, when you have an all image email, you've got to consider that's got to be delivered to lots of different devices, different inboxes, etc. So how that arrives might look different. And you will identify images in the emails, James, and you might say that's a real zoomer, that one, where people, in order to read it, you have to zoom into it. And if you're asking people to take that step as well, then it's likely it's not going to get consumed as the way you want it to.
Yeah. it's clunky and it's awkward. And whilst I totally respect that desire to be able to use your special fonts that aren't web safe, the design elements that you want, when you're using an image block, your imagination is really the only limit. But as Jamie says, there are ways that you can build beautiful looking emails that are going to be more responsive, that are going to be easier for people who might have impairments that prevent them from engaging with them. So it's a no-brainer in that regard.
Nice.
On the topic of images, alt text is really important, and that's something that generally most, whether you're using MailChimp or Klaviyo or whatever it might be, most email providers will give you a nudge if you're not using alt text. They'll say, oh, you forgot your alt text, do you want to add it? And the temptation with alt text is just to alt text, by the way, just for anyone who isn't familiar with that term, if someone can't see the picture, alt text is the thing that gets read out. It's the words that are there in place of the picture for anyone who might not be able to see the email, for example, or for people for whom images don't load. So generally speaking, the temptation is to just describe the image, which is fine, and it's better than no alt text at all. So let's say you're including a picture of a bear, you'll put bear in the alt text, and that's it. What we would prefer to do is have more descriptive alt texts, okay, that actually contribute to the enjoyment of the email. So, for example, let's say that we have a picture of a t-shirt. Instead of just putting an alt text of t-shirt, we might put as the alt text something like, our t-shirts are perfect for a night out, or something like that. So the person listening to this knows that it's a t-shirt in the picture, but they're also still getting some information. They're still getting something about that image beyond the fact that it's just a t-shirt. So that is really, really important, and kind of links quite closely to just generally being more descriptive, thinking about people that can't necessarily see the email as well as others. Where alt text is super, super important, though, when it comes to images, is when you're linking an image. Now, we are quite agnostic about linking images in general, because there's rumour that it can impact deliverability if you're linking too many images. But we also understand the value of linking images. If you are linking an image, people, you must use alt text. If you don't, someone listening to this email through some sort of text-to-speak software will instead just have the whole URL read out to them. And, if that URL is long and has numbers at the end, and maybe you're using a UTM link, so it's super long, that could be like a 3-minute listen. And so please, 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 if you are linking images, include alt text, because those text-to-speaks will default to the alt text over the link, so long as the alt text is there.
Well, rest in peace if you're not doing that.
Indeed.
Okay. They were actually quite interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There's no need to sound so surprised.
No. Okay. Are there any other ones that you want to add to that list?
Yeah. So one quick thing is color. We've already talked about color blindness, and this isn't as applicable to women as it is men, apparently. But using color intelligently is really, really important. There is such a thing, Jamie, as a contrast checker. So you can get a color contrast score. There are free resources out there. There's one on webaim.org. That's webaim.org. And if you go to their resources page, you can find a contrast checker on there. And you upload your image and it will give you a contrast score. So the most common errors made here are when we're choosing that all-important decision of what color should our button be and what color should the text be that's on the button. And if we're using something like white and black, that's obviously a very, very high contrast score. That's fine. If we're using, say, a yellow button with white text, that can cause problems, and that would have a very low contrast score. And if the contrast score is too low, it can be incredibly difficult for people with visual impairments to see. But also, if you're on certain modes, and Jamie, you've illustrated it earlier with dark mode, for example, having a low contrast score can really impact how easy it is to see what the text is actually saying. And obviously, we want people to be able to read our CTAs. So that's another one that is sort of, you can immediately change tomorrow.
Nice. Good. It's weird providing actual helpful stuff on the podcast.
I know, it does feel a bit odd.
Hold on, you've ruined it.
There are a list on this article that, again, hopefully we can link in the show notes. There are like 12 factors here, so I'm only scratching the surface. Everything from larger font sizes to giving your copy breathing space to whether your text is left aligned. Like, all of these things will also make a difference. But I think that the couple that I've mentioned there are particularly, not only they're easy to action and something that can be done, like if you're not lazy, you can start doing them immediately, but also they have such a negative impact on so many people that it just feels like it just feels so easy and obvious to change them.
Nice. Okay. And if you're listening to this and you're not sure whether your emails are accessible or not, James is offering free one-to-one accessibility sessions. They're unlimited and they're 4 hours long. So if you want one of those, no, I'm joking. If you want to get in touch and you want one of us to look over your email and just be like, this looks okay, or this is awful, we're going to break both your arms. If you want that input, just get in touch. You know where we are. Website is theinbox.club. We're the kind of people that will always jump on a call and help people out. Don't expect it to be like a sales thing. Just get in touch and we'll help.
For sure. And that's the thing, is that you do, unless you have Litmus, and Litmus is a relatively expensive piece of software. So I don't expect the casual email sender to be investing in that and necessarily going through this. So and like I say, there will almost certainly be things that it picks up that are not intuitive. Some emails you can look at and immediately think, yeah, this needs some improvement. Others you might feel they're absolutely fine, and actually there's something you haven't thought of. So definitely Jamie's offer was not an empty one there.
Cool. Well, consider my interest piqued. This topic. Do you want to do a hot take?
I guess my hot take is, even if you are devoid of any sort of morality or care for the significant number of people that can't read your emails, even if that's the case, do it for the money, and do it to tick that legal box as well. There is always a great reason to be doing this stuff. So I don't know, I've kind of said that already, but I think it's really worth reiterating.
Yeah. Do it for the money.
I know we have an incredibly, immoral bunch of listeners, and so I need to talk in a language they'll understand.
About my wife again.
Yeah. I wouldn't denigrate Mel like that.
Good one. Oh, it's all come full circle.
What do you have a hot take?
Yeah, I do. Again, I'm cheaping out with this one. But I will try and remember to put that link into that Litmus article into the show notes for this. My hot take is that you should go and read that. I think that is a really good one-stop shop for resource for this kind of thing. So if you want to read more about it, head to there. We're definitely not sponsored by Litmus. I wish we were. But yeah, go and read that if you want to get into this subject a bit deeper and you can't face spending FaceTime with James and I on a helpful call.
No one will blame you for.
No, absolutely not. Cool. So that's it. We've just recorded 3 episodes in a row, which is going to be a weird time warp. It's like an interstellar where for every half an hour for us is like 3 weeks for you as a listener.
Yeah. Where are the giant waves? Wait, is that Interstellar?
No, I can't remember giant waves in Interstellar.
You know the scene where they're on that planet and they're like, look at that mountain, it's moving, and then it's a huge wave.
Ah, I don't know.
I'm sure that's Interstellar.
Yeah, it might be. I've only seen it once. I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Tidal wave
Okay.
scene. I'll link it to you on YouTube afterwards. It's really good.
Okay, nice. Okay, do that.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to rewatch that for ages.
Yeah, same actually.
Do you want to watch it together?
Ah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, like
I
popcorn.
don't think it's on any of the streaming platforms. That's the only thing.
Really?
Oh, maybe it is.
It's gotta
Is
be
it the
on
one with
one.
Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
tried to find it the other day because I want to watch it as well.
Let's get together. Well, if it's not on one of the, I mean, I must be paying like 200 quid a month for streaming services at the moment. If it's not on one of those, someone owes me some money. Yeah, okay, we'll get it sorted. Popcorn, pajamas, and Interstellar. We'll
I
find
feel
it
like we hang
somewhere.
out enough. Do we have to also watch films together?
Yeah,
Yeah, we do.
we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We might have to buy the DVD.
Oh,
Do you even
God.
buy DVDs anymore?
You know what? So I recently upgraded my Xbox, but the new Xboxes don't have disk drives,
Not if you're frugal and you get the cheap one. They don't.
which obviously I did.
Yeah.
You know me well enough by now.
Yeah.
So we've now got all these DVDs and Blu-rays that we can't watch. So we're in the throngs of like looking for a Blu-ray player so we can watch these things. So
I'll
we're
just get
going
rid
to
of them.
buy one. What do you think?
Wow. Yeah, I did that. I music mag all my DVDs. Anyway, we're at 36 minutes. Let's stop talking about DVDs.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for listening,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.
Tune in
Bye.
next time. Bye.